Hey there, it's Lance. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode. We're going to be talking to Behind the Business podcast and discussing about starting up a podcast and the hardship involved. I just want to say thank you for listening and supporting us. It means a lot to us, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
Well, I think this podcast, we wanted to talk about the podcast.
Yeah, man, like behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes of a podcast and what it's like running a podcast. And, maybe why don't we talk about what your podcast is about first briefly, and then we can talk about our podcast.
Yeah, for sure. So, for all listeners out there, Lance, how about you do the intro actually? tell the listeners out there who we are.
Who we are? Well, we're Off the Walk. It's just, two Asian guys talking about our lives as second generation Canadian born Chinese, and just kind of like the stuff that we've gone through in our lives, being raised as second generation, being our parents are from.
But okay, so Off the Walk is both of you guys
talking about our lives living as second generation born Chinese, and just some of our experience. And we also talk to guests like yourselves, just talking about their experiences. And we go from topics, anywhere from Halloween, Christmas traditions, to, deep things like racism, right? Obviously, a lot of Asian hate that's been going around lately on the news and whatnot. So we get into topics like that, and we've got some topics about dating and the love scene as well. So yeah, how about you guys?
We're behind the business, and we're mostly, I would say, talking about how businesses came about, right? Like hearing their story, and just, I don't know, Dave, if you want to elaborate on
that. Yeah. So our podcast is about just learning behind the business of local businesses in the city, and just discussing like the trials and tribulations, the success, the failures, and just what it's like to run your own business. Because I find that most of the time on social media, people they want to show what's good, right? They don't show what's real on the back end of things. And I feel like the real side of the story is always better than looking good on the gram.
Yeah, straight up, man. If they want the real world, they come to you.
That's right. And if they want failures, they come to us.
Yeah,
we'll teach them all about failures.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting with ours is like we want to hear the failures, because I feel like a lot of business people don't talk about that, right? They just everyone's portrayed as like, if you're in a business, you're only seeing what you're seeing, right? But I know, like from firsthand, and I know a lot of business owners, it's very hard to get a business going. Very, very hard. And I think there's a lot of like development and learning to get it going. And I think that's what people miss out. Like they think it's easy, right? They just see the good stuff, but yeah, they don't see behind the business.
So today, and I'm not sure if you guys have talked to anybody on your other interviews, but we've actually never talked about what behind the scenes is like for even starting a podcast. No. So, for all the listeners out there who want to start one and want to know what they're going to get themselves in.
The truth about the podcast, I think people don't, I think people that are in the podcast appreciate other people's podcasts, because there's actually so much work just to get it going, right?
So much, man. Like, I feel like I spend a lot of my part of my day just doing a ton of behind the scenes stuff. I don't know about you, Lance, or maybe it's just me doing all the work. And you're like, oh, I'm doing pretty good.
Sorry, Eric. I guess listeners, if you're gonna pick a good partner, pick a guy like Eric. Does everything for you. All you gotta do is just show up and look pretty, and that's it, man.
Yeah.
That sounds like me.
Yeah, that's like Dave. That's like Dave.
Me and Dave, we actually the smart ones, all right? So no, I mean,
me and Jason can't sleep at night. Dave and Lance are sleeping like babies. So, yeah.
No, I think all joking aside, I think, it does take a lot of work. And like you guys were saying before, a lot of times when you do start up a business, there's a lot of work that you don't anticipate doing until you get your so-called hands dirty. And then you're like, oh man, like I gotta get onto the social media platforms. I gotta start posting. I mean, all of those things take a lot of time. And then of course, talking about editing, right? Like editing the work, it's tedious work. I wish it's a good one take and then you could just throw it all up there. But I think a lot of people don't see that, happening behind the scenes. They're just listening. They sound, oh, these guys sound so flawless. Maybe for some podcasters, that's like their third, fourth, fifth take before they get like, the best take or re-edited or, somehow remastered to be, the end product. But there's a lot of time that goes into that. And I think people don't see that. So, I mean, yeah, I think, some word of advice to people, do your research, see, what it takes to do a podcast or whatever type of business that you're doing, and be ready for other stuff, even things that you research but you didn't think it would happen, right? I mean, even for us, I think looking for guests is also a tedious time for us to try to find guests to come onto our show to talk about their experience. So yeah,
we were just literally talking about that today because we are almost at the end of our list for the next group of podcast guests. And we're just like, fuck, now we got to go back and figure out who we can schedule in and what time frames and slots. And you got to kind of like, you got to talk to them and see what schedule works for them. And it's like, oh, this one doesn't work for this person. All right, next person. This one doesn't work for this person. Next person.
It's tough. Actually, I also want to like go back right to the beginning too. And I think this is one question that I also had when I first started a podcast. Well, this was a question I had, was whether to go solo or with another person. Because you see a lot of like podcasts, you can have one, two, however many. Like, I don't know, but for you two, did you already have it in mind to go to you?
No.
It
actually was just primarily Jason. This is actually his passion pet project.
Mm-hmm. And then he got you somehow. He blackmailed you in so something happened.
No, yeah. Well, let's start with it literally was just like I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna it was like COVID, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna do a podcast with myself about business. And what happened was I did the podcast and I was like, yo, this is actually like when I did it, I got a lot of comments and like talking about it, right? And it was like, okay, if this is called Behind the Business, who's the next person in line? And obviously it's Dave, right? So I was like, well, let's kind of hear Dave's story. And then, I was like kind of interviewing Dave and his life, right? And then it was like, okay, well, what's the next business? And then it was like, well, it should be YYC Real Estate Group. Right? And then it was like, okay. And then the next one was my dad. And then it just kind of like, after my dad, I don't know who was after Dave. And I was like, yo.
It was Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy, because Jimmy got me on, our previous broker got me on his. And I was like, why don't you come on us? And then I was like, Dave, you want to come on? And then it kind of was like, we all got something out of it. And I was like, yo, this is actually kind of crazy. Like, what is happening with this, like these podcasts, right? And then I guess Dave just started coming to every podcast.
Dave just showed up. He just showed up.
Just like, yo, yeah, we're like, okay, well, it makes sense. Just
we started interviewing more people, and then we're like, we kept on getting more and more ideas of who to invite, like who would be great guests, who would be people that we could get a lot of information and also just knowledge from, right? So then we just started kind of like booking people here and there. But I was like, I told Jason from the very beginning, I'm like, as long as this doesn't get in the way of our business, I'm okay with doing it.
Yeah.
But you know what the weird thing was? I think for us, it actually helped our business, and we actually learned with all these business people about business. So it's like it just was like it was really good, right? And I think that's why we just kept doing it. We're like, we're actually getting stuff out, and we're learning from these business people, which we probably should be asking advice and maybe get some different opinions on business, right?
Plus, after the first episode, Dave's like, I like the sound of my voice. I want to be on this now.
Exactly.
I actually didn't like the sound of my voice. Like, I'm not used to listening to it, right?
Yeah.
You know, when you listen to your voice for the first time, you're like,
yeah,
what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I've never listened back to any of the episodes that we've done. So, you know, it works out that way. Just don't listen to it. After you're done, that's it.
No, you just show up and then you're
That's
out.
it.
I have to listen to it because I'm editing it.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You're the editor. Oh, man. That's right. That's right. But I guess
what about for you guys? How did you guys figure this out with the duo?
How do you guys get into it?
Eric, I think you should start this one off.
I wanted to do a podcast. Oh no, actually, I wanted to do a focus group first on movies and stuff like that. I wanted to talk specifically on movies, and I was thinking of ideas like starting on meetup.com or something like that, like a focus group. And then my buddy was like, yo, why don't you just do a podcast? I'm like,
was this happening during COVID though? Like,
this was happening the idea of this was coming before COVID. So this was like in 2019, end of the year. And then
that was kind of like me too. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's when I started talking to Lance, who had already had a podcast. He was doing
Lance already had a podcast.
Yeah. He was doing his thing with like a couple other people. And I got introduced to him by
Is that still running?
No, it's not. No, Originally, I'd done a podcast with a couple buddies, exactly about what Off the Walk we talk about. It just never panned out the way that I saw it, and then you know, thereafter, it was off for a couple months, probably like good 4 or 5 months, and then I was introduced to Eric, and Eric wanted to start his own podcast, talking about movies, as you explained before, and then later on we reconnected. I think a month or two after that,
something like that. Like, or actually, it could have been a couple months later because our first episode was like in November. So I think we may have connected in like September, or something like that. August, September. Yeah,
August, September. Yeah, we connected, and then he was just kind of like, "Hey, how's your podcast going?" Right, and I'm like, yeah, we released 3 episodes and now that's it, you know, and things were in the limbo. So then he was like, well, let's do it. And I was like, let's do it. Okay. You know, and so we kicked it off again and restarted with a different brand, and just started off again. So
what was it called again?
The other one was called Boba and Beer. So
beer.
It was like a clash. We wanted it to be like a clash of, you know, Western kind of meets Eastern, right? So kind of like the boba is, you know, from Eastern side, and then beer is obviously, well, it's universal, but it's kind of, you know, mixing in with the North American side, right? So it's like a little bit of mix, kind of describing kind of how, I am, right? Or some people are, that they're raised kind of with Eastern or, you know, China or Asian kind of backgrounds, but but we're born here in Canada. So there's a lot of traditions that make us who we are because of how our parents raised us. But, you know, still being here in Canada, obviously we take after a lot of the traditions here as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So like, I have a question as well too. So like, when you guys first started doing this, like, what were you guys? Because for me, I spent like forever trying to find hardware, like what type of mics to use. I was going on YouTube. I was like, what's the cheapest but best. I know those words may not go together, you know, but I was like, what's a budget friendly mic to use and all that for this, just in case the podcast didn't pan out. And I was like, all right, I only blew $100 max on this. I don't know about you guys. Like, when did you guys first start out using it and all that?
Jason had some like USB mics that we were using, and I think those worked well in the beginning until we got like some extra mics, and then we needed that. I don't know what that recorder is called, Jay, but we needed like specific microphones with like that 3-prong jack. So I think Jason got a mic, and then we needed a couple other ones, and I actually just took 2 karaoke mics from my dad.
Nice.
Yeah, and we've been using them since. They're actually pretty good.
The
Those karaoke mics,
recording
man.
is like what makes it really good for all, I guess, types of mics. But we tried to. I was trying to buy these USB mics, and then where we were recording onto Audacity, but my computer only has 2 USB plugins. And then when we had a guest, I bought another USB mic, and I bought an adapter for three mics, and it was not working. The sound was so bad. It was like a adapter for 3 mics onto Audacity, and it just was not. It was pretty bad. And then I don't know. I think I was like, yo, we gotta like step up our game here. And this thing costs like, I think it's around $600. And it records. And then we had to buy new mics. Well, Dave got 2 of his karaoke mics from his parents. I think I had one, and then we plugged it in, and then the sound was really good, right? And then we recorded on that. And I actually saw that first when I went on a podcast with Jimmy, the first podcast I did. I was like, yo, what the hell is this? Like, why do you have this thing? He's like, oh, it's a game changer, bro. It's good. I'm like, dude, I'm never spending that much money on the podcast. And
2 weeks later, so you drop a couple bills.
It all made sense to me now. I'm like, he had all these wires, all these mics, all these headsets. Everything made sense, right? Like the headsets is a game changer.
Yeah, the headsets are the game changer.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the difference, because like for the listeners out there who don't know, because your podcast is mainly live, right? There's like multiple people in the same room, whereas ours is, we've never done an episode me and Lance have never even been in the same room together to do an episode, and we've done 23 episodes.
You guys seriously have no idea the difference. Like, there's such a difference in person versus like Zoom. Very different. I can't even explain to, like, I don't know, Dave, can you, like, you know what I'm talking about, right, Dave?
I feel like it's just like you're face to face and like the energy of it, and then like you just kind of go with the flow. But we found that when we first started with these Zoom calls and stuff like that, we were like talking out of place. Like we were just like trying to get it who's talking, and then on top of that, sometimes the internet, it lags. So when like you're saying something, so it takes like maybe like a second or 2 for that person to even hear. So then like say if Jason was talking and then there was like a pause there, but then I would say something, but then someone else would talk in that same time. Then we just start cutting each other off, and we're like, oh yeah, you go. Okay, go for it. Like, no, they're like, no, you go. We're like, okay, fuck. Like, so it's different when you're in person, because it's just like straight fluid conversation.
Yeah.
And it's live. So it's like very, I don't know. I feel like it's more like intense. Not intense like in a bad way, but like more like, I don't know what the right word is, but like
more personal.
That's the word.
Yeah. I gotta say, so during the first podcast, like the one that I originally had with a couple of buddies, we did it live in his pretty much in his house, and we had it set up. And I know what you mean when you talk about, because like you say, you're in there, you got the whole feel of the room, the mics are in there, you're looking at each other. It's a lot different than, for example, how we're doing it right now, where we're looking at screens and we got all these crazy backgrounds and stuff like that. But definitely it's a much different feel. And I get what you say when, you know, we keep interrupting each other because it's hard to gauge when that person is going to speak and whatnot. But we actually there was three of us, right? So we actually had troubles with that on a live session too. So we ended up doing you know, we ended up raising our hands to show that, okay, hey, I got something to say, I got something I want to add into you know, what you're saying or whatever. So we wouldn't interrupt each other that way, because it's same thing as I found that when we were sitting all together and we didn't have anything to control that, it was just like one person would just keep overrunning somebody else, and then they wouldn't even finish, and you know, they just kept jumping in. But it was more fluid when we were able to kind of put our hands up and, you know, kind of dictate, okay, you know, hey, Jason's got something to add to that, you know, what do you want to say to that? And then you would kind of pick it up from there, type of thing. But I definitely agree with you, it's a whole lot different feel. But as we know now with COVID, how COVID is, it's like you just make do with what you have. And you know, even this now still, we've Eric says, we've put out 23 episodes and it's still pretty good, but you know, probably a lot different. I'd like to sit down with my guests as well, kind of get a more formal introduction and be able to see, you know, kind of face to face, and like you say, be more personal, right? Because you're kind of building this relationship through this podcast as well, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And one thing I actually want to say about at the beginning of the podcast, and I just got present to it right now, was I think at the beginning of the podcast too, with myself, I always interrupted. And like now I've realized I just like should just listen and like let people talk before interjecting, right? Because me and Dave actually we would give each other feedback with every podcast. We'd be like, yo, how was that podcast? How was that podcast? And he would always say, like, you interrupted me. You interrupted the guest. I was like, oh, you know, so it's like, I also think it helped me very, like, listen. The more podcasts we go, the more it's like, let them finish. And then, you know, I don't know about you guys, but yeah.
I think we've been pretty good. Like it was the strangest thing because I think, you know, at the time when me and Eric first started, if it felt like, you know, we're like, okay, how are we going to do this? You know, and at the time COVID happened and was like, okay, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to, you know, make it happen at one of our houses, and you know, to have us come over just because of COVID. So, you know, we were trying to find out ways to do it online, and we've, you know, we ended up doing it. But you know, I think from the very first time, because I don't, you know, for some of the listeners out there, I just met Eric like last, what, 2 years ago? No, last year. Was it last year?
Last year, right before COVID, like as February or January.
Yeah, like, so I didn't know him too well. So to see how the chemistry worked was the first thing for me, right? It was like, okay, can we jive together, you know? And honestly, the first recording was like, wow, like we just hit it off, and you know, the flow was just so seamless for us, and it worked out good. And I can't say like even for the previous podcast that I had before, it was pretty good too. So I was kind of a little bit worried because I had something to compare with, and me and my other buddies, we jive so well as well. So in this time when I went with Eric, I was like, okay, you know, I was a little bit worried about that, but yeah, it worked out really good for us.
Did you guys, before you guys created Off the Walk, were you guys already like on your first episode already being like, hey, yeah, this is Off the Walk? Or was it like the first couple episodes when you're like, okay, now we got to create an actual name? Like, did you guys come together first and be like, hey, yeah, we're doing this for sure? Or was it like a trial run error?
What did we do, Lance? I think we did one episode first. So that episode has never been released. We did a trial episode where we
yeah, that's what I mean, right? Because like that must have been like, I don't know, for like that must have been weird, not weird, but like you don't really know the other person. It sounds like you guys already doing a podcast together.
Yeah, it was like, you know, imagine going out with some friends, you know, I mean, it was kind of weird because it would be two guys sitting there, right? Like you're on a date or something. But we literally said, okay, here's the topic. Let's talk about it. And we just, you know, dived in there and started talking about it. And it actually, like I said, it worked out just seamless. Like, you know, sometimes you would hear about conversations just going blank, like, you know, just have dead silence for like, I don't know, a couple minutes. But we just kept flowing and it was good, good, good. And all the way to the end. I think that conversation lasted like what, half an hour?
That thing was like 47 minutes actually.
Oh wow. Okay.
I
There you
don't know
go.
why I remember that.
But to answer your question, we didn't have Off the Walk. So we didn't have a name for the podcast. And at the time we were thinking, you know, should we, like, for me, it was like, should I continue on with Boba and Beer, or should we just continue on and create something new? And for me, it was like, okay, you know what, let's just start this fresh again. And in the back of my head was because, like, okay, I don't know where it is with my other buddies, because we just didn't really have that conversation about how things are we continuing on or whatnot. We just never had that conversation. So we ended up I think there's an episode talking about the name that we decided, but we came between Off the Walk and the Banana Experience. And obviously you guys know which one we chose.
You guys chose the wrong one, man.
Yeah, you think so?
No, I like the name Off the Walk. It rolls off the tongue well, and it's like the topics that you guys talk about are kind of like off the wall, but off the walk Asian style, you know. So I feel
yeah.
So how did you guys come up with your name? Like, did you sit down and have to really think about it, or just it was there?
I
Jason.
think I asked Dave a few ones, didn't I? And then I don't think Dave liked any of them.
It's like, what do you think about this, Jason's podcast?
Mind the business with Jason.
Yeah, with Jason.
No, but I did ask you a few, and Dave was just like, nah. I was like,
no, I let Jason know from the very beginning that this was like his passion project, and whatever he wanted to do, like, it's up to him, and I'll support it. So like, I told him that I would co-host and whatever as he needs me. But I think we've done like maybe one episode like not together. So
yeah, I think it was like Dave was like, I'll come here and there whenever I want to, and I was like, yeah, whatever. I think I'm just gonna go with it. And then it just kind of like, it got really real when we opened the podcast studio. Like I was like, dude, we got to take it to the next step here. Like there's a lot of traction here.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next move for us? And I think we were like, okay. Then we started talking more about it, and then I think it was like, okay, yeah, this is actually legit. Like we bought all the equipment, you know, but I think we bought like one better mic, and then just set up an actual studio, which is kind of like our office also. But we asked someone for some advice on what to do what the next steps were, and then he kind of told us, and then I think me and Dave were like, okay, yeah, I think we got to take it to the next level here. And then it was just like we set up the podcast room, I think in, when was that, Dave? I don't remember, January or something.
yeah, it was like just before the lockdown was released, like in February or something like that.
Yeah.
So when the lockdown came, were you guys like, oh fuck? Because like now you're like, can we still have people come in for?
Well, we did a lot over Zoom, just because some of the guests that we were interviewing were like not in the city, like a few from Vancouver and stuff like that. So we didn't have to be face to face or in person. And I think once we had the studio ready and stuff like that, we gave the option to the people if they wanted to do face to face or if they wanted to do just over Zoom. So
and I think we made a decision. I think it was episode 26 where we're like, we got to start filming because we got to actually use this as content. You know, the filming is more engaging. It's, people kept asking like, hey, you guys should actually film, right? And I think that was when it became more work for the editing, a lot more work,
For you.
Yeah.
Dave's like,
Dude,
no, it was
I
easy
gotta
for
tell
me.
you guys a story. Let me tell you a story about my editing. I spent like 5 hours editing the first podcast, okay? The fucking Dave rips it apart. Like, oh, why is this like this?
Wait, why do you got this fucking video on me when I'm like doing some stupid shit and I'm fucking talking? Like I'm like in the room like looking at the ceiling or something, and it's like a 5-second clip of me looking around when he's talking. And I was like, you could have just edited this part out of you talking so that I'm not in it. Like we're gonna get.
Yeah.
I feel
I
like
was not having it. I was like, Dave, you don't know what I just went through. I don't even know about this right now.
I feel like that story is like Dave's the backseat driver, like, no, turn here, turn there, but he's not actually driving, right? He's doing all the work. It's
Why
just like,
are you doing this? It's like I just spent 5 hours editing this first video podcast, learning, and then like yeah, that was pretty funny. I was like, nah, Dave, I'm done.
Motherfucker.
Bro, that's why you gotta
can
get
have
an
it
editor
5
back.
seconds looking around. Okay, I don't care. But,
and that goes to show how tight you guys are, because after that, you guys are still doing the podcast together. Because if it was me, I'd be like, Dave, get the hell out of here, man. You're done. Get out of here.
Yeah. After that, I stopped watching them.
That's how you solve the problem, man.
I actually don't watch them after I edit them too. I think you guys like I don't listen, or I'm like after I've done editing it's live, I can't.
It's done. Wait,
Yeah.
so do you post it on YouTube or is it on there?
Yeah, so this will be
okay.
on YouTube. This will be on YouTube. Just so you guys know, this is going on YouTube.
I didn't consent to nothing, all right?
It's recording. There's a recording.
It's like,
So like that's why you guys got to get an edit, because like we were doing what would happen? Did we like I know we edited the first one, and then how many did we edit before another like Ken joined in? I can't remember.
I think we edited like 2 of them, and then you were like, hey, I got a buddy that's like willing to do this for free.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. Hey, that takes the plate off of us, right? Like, and yeah, Ken joined us and helped us.
Wait, he's doing it for free.
Oh yeah. I mean, we ain't getting paid, so he's not getting paid.
Passion project.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, but Ken's been definitely a big help for us, right? Because like Jason, it's a lot of editing that happens in the background, and if you're not like a person that does it all the time and you have to learn this new tool, it could take somebody quite a bit of time to do, right? So yeah, for listeners out there, if you already are dealing with like editing software, then you're a plus. But if not, that's something you have to plan ahead to make sure you learn. And I got into some Premiere too, and it's hard, and you need like, especially video, I think you need a pretty crazy computer too, right? Like you got to get a good graphics card, CPU, lots of RAM, all of that jazz, right? Because if you don't, then editing I'm sure it's just a nightmare if you don't have those things.
I think for me, it was like all YouTube videos of like because like if you open up Premiere, you've seen Premiere. It's a nightmare.
Oh,
you don't even know.
Just shut it down. You open it, just shut it down.
You don't even know where to import the file. Like,
yeah.
It's so complicated. Like, and I that's the advice too, is like if you got to commit to this if you're gonna do it yourself, because the editing is like I'm like 3-4 episodes behind on editing right now. It's a lot of work, and I think people don't realize that, especially with video editing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Video editing is like, because we have 3 cameras, 3 different audio files. I spent the last episode.
There's 4 audio files, right?
Well, this one's going to be 1 because it's Zoom, but when there's an audio file per each mic, but last episode, I spent an hour trying to sync up everyone's voice with the mic, because we didn't clap. We're supposed to clap, and we didn't clap. So I'm just like trying to move it, for each. Because I don't think people understand. Like each video file has to match each audio file,
Yeah.
and all three of them have to match.
Yeah. It's like
I
those
hear
like
you.
Yeah.
animate dubs when they're like their lips are off, or like those Chinese movies. Where
Yeah.
God, I love those Chinese movies, man. But no, we have some similar stuff with us, right? Which is why for us, we use Audacity. So Audacity is a free software for anybody that doesn't know. But we had to time it properly. So each time Eric would do a countdown and be like, okay, 1, 2, 3, go, and each one of us would have to push it, at that time that he says go, or else we'd be all out of sync. So it would be extremely hard for Ken, obviously, now that if he was editing, he'd just be like, what the F is going on, man? You guys are like, this guy's 5 seconds off, this other guy's like 3 seconds off, and it's like I don't know how to piece you guys all together, right? So
Yeah.
I can see your frustration for that.
Yeah, it's fulfilling when it's all synced up, but yeah, it's definitely like we're trying to find someone right now to edit it. Is Ken available for free?
He's ours. He's ours.
So do you want to learn video? Because we're actually, Dave, how many conversations have we had about this? I'm like, dude, like we're so busy right now in real estate, and it's like I'm doing the editing like 30 minutes. Yeah, like it's just it's not working right now. And if we want to take it to the next level, like these podcasts need to come out every week, right? And
I got a question. I mean, that it's an interesting fact. Like, how much time do you think in a week do you spend on your podcast?
Well, lately editing, like barely any, but the podcast alone, just to set up and have conversations, I would say at least the podcast alone is about 2-3 hours, right? Right, Dave? Like you're going there, we're setting up.
Yeah, getting the cameras all ready, angles, making sure that it looks good. And then once the people come, like we do a little bit of a mic test, and then video, like just make sure it's all like framed in properly. And then after that, we hit record, and then we talk for a good like hour and a half maybe.
And then they kind of stay after we talk.
Yeah, we talk afterwards when we just kind of like break it down and talk about how it was with them and stuff like that. So it's good, probably 3 hours.
So you talk about three hours for just the podcast, and then how much like do you guys must do editing? So how much time is on editing?
If it's a Zoom call like this, probably I'll run through it twice, so at least 2 hours, at least, just on the editing. Then you gotta upload it on YouTube, all the links. The descriptions, I hate writing the descriptions. We actually get Dave's girlfriend to write all the descriptions down. We pay her to write the descriptions because the description stuff I just like hate. I didn't like writing the descriptions. So I would say at least on a Zoom, you're spending at least 4 to 5 hours. And then if it's a video podcast,
I mean, for Dave, it's just for Jason, it's like half the week is spent.
But even though I'm working on the podcast, it's like because we have the business too. It's like he supports on that side. Do you know what I mean? And that's I think it works because it's like.
Yeah, I'm like, we can't both be on the podcast working, just going broke.
Wow. We're all too familiar with that, right, Eric?
Oh, hell yeah. We ain't made nothing.
Yeah, but yeah, it's been so busy though that like I don't have time for the podcast, right? And
yeah. So I mean, I think to give the listeners like a little bit of an idea. So what would you say, like close to 10 hours, like including like maybe some social media content as well, like feeding off of
that's
that?
not even including social media.
That's not okay. so what would you say? Like let's ballpark it. Maybe
I would say that at least 10 hours an episode.
10 hours an episode, including everything, like including everything. Okay, so I mean, I guess listeners, out there that are watching this or listening to this, at least think about 10 hours of your time to do a podcast, right? And give out that, because I think even for us, what do you think, Eric? You think we put in about that much time per podcast, I guess? Because how many podcasts are you putting out in a week?
We try to
Oh,
do
no.
one. What about you guys?
One. Yeah, we do one per week. We put out one per week, and we've been doing it basically since we started in November. So that's why we're already at 20 something episodes.
Yeah.
So, and we record 1 to 2 a week.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and we do pretty good. Like, and I could say that you would probably do about, yeah, you could say about 10 hours, like including Ken's editing and stuff like that, right? Because we also get in together to get a meeting going, right? Just talk about what we're going to be talking about per episode, right? Come up with a list of questions and stuff like that. And then on top of that, the social media platforms, right? Instagram, and we're not on YouTube, but Instagram, Twitter. What else are we on?
Oh, the descriptions,
Facebook.
Jason. Yeah,
yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. I gotta write the synopsis on the. Oh man, sometimes I just sit there in front of my screen and I'm like,
Dude, you gotta pay Dave's girlfriend to do it for you.
She's an English.
Like, it's worth it every little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just sends her the audio. She listens to it, and then she just writes a quick synopsis on it.
Because she's
Yeah.
a writer. She's a
He's
What
an
do you-
English literature major. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
see, that's because and that's different because you having a third party who hasn't listened to it and wasn't involved in all that, just listening, and then versus me, who's like, all right, I know what I talked about, but what am I gonna write out? How am I gonna write this out, man? And it's tough. Every weekend I write the synopsis and I send an Instagram kind of description to my sister, and she's the one that does the Instagram and posts it up. She's doing it for free as well too, so that's family right there.
But you gotta give me these hookups, man. We gotta
This guy's got all the hookups. I tell you, I was in the beginning. I was doing some of the Instagram posts. I'll tell you guys right now. It took me like 2 hours just trying to create the content, right? To make it like, okay, this is what the topic was that we're talking about, and try to make everything relevant to our post. And even then, it was like, oh my god, like, and that goes to say that, there's a lot of these people now that are what do they call them, like social media managers, where they are managing your platforms and helping you create content. I think that's a great space to be in. I don't know of anybody, but I mean,
Yeah. They get paid quite a bit too, just for the posts.
Mhm.
So like I know like companies, like a buddy of mine, they own a dental clinic, and like there's like dedicated dental social media like content creators.
That's crazy. Check out
That
these
is nuts.
teeth. Fucking smile. Just like picture on teeth. I totally agree. Like, just social media is ridiculous. Like, my sister, when she heard that it took Lance 2 hours, she's like, "What? Hold on, give me this." She just like whips up this post in like 30 seconds. What do you think about this? I'm like, this is great. Maybe we can help alleviate Lance of some of that time as well. If you're able to do it so much quicker, let's just go with you. And you don't want to get paid, that's excellent.
Well, definitely give me her number because we'll pay her.
Yeah. There you go. Your sister got a hookup, man.
I should ask her.
No, I'm serious. Like, I know a simple post that just has an audio file clipped that has your logo. Like, for me, that takes a couple hours, and for some people, it takes 5-10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So like, when you put up your stuff, like, what platform do you use to put all your stuff up then?
What do you mean? I just use Instagram. We use
No.
No.
No, I mean your episodes. What platform do you? Because we use Anchor.
I use Buzzsprout.
Buzzsprout.
Okay.
So Buzzsprout does it automatically to Apple and Spotify. Yeah.
Okay. And because Buzzsprout is paid and Anchor is free, but there must be some, like, Buzzsprout. Like, how is that process? So when you upload on the Buzzsprout, is that you put all your description, everything in there, and then you click, I don't know, submit, it shoots it out to all the other platforms? Like, is that how it works?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering,
how does it work for you guys?
So in Anchor, it's the same thing. So we put it into like the description, you upload slide the MP3 episode in there, and then it shoots it. For us, Lance, it shoots it to like how many, like 5 or 6 platforms?
Yeah, I think it's what is it? Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio.
No, not iHeart and Amazon. I had to apply.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah,
But like, was it TuneIn? I think there was a
TuneIn,
couple
Castbox.
Castbox. Yeah,
Yeah,
a few of the major podcast platforms, right? That they do. So I
And
think
it's free.
it's
free.
free. Yeah, but there might be, I don't know
I
if
just
there's
find everything for free, man. What the fuck?
Well, guys, you heard it here first. There's the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. I'll let you guys decide who did it right. All right.
Here's the thing, though. I am following Buzzsprout on Facebook. Like, I follow the Buzzsprout podcast
Do
group.
you guys get
on
stats? How many
Facebook.
downloads? Like, do you guys have all that? Like, how many down? Oh, really?
Analytics.
Well, Anchor is actually owned by Spotify. So they actually encourage you to use Anchor to put it onto Spotify, and they give you all the analytics off of Anchor from there. So
Yeah.
it's pretty good.
You fucked up.
No, well, here's
No,
the thing,
I
though.
don't think you.
Yeah, because I follow the Buzzsprout media page and all that. So, and I think there might be some extra stuff that like maybe Anchor doesn't have that Buzzsprout has, right? Like there's probably something in there. Like, for example, we don't get monetization with Anchor.
Oh yeah, Buzzsprout does. Buzzsprout does.
Buzzsprout does, yeah. For us, US Anchor people do, but in Canada, we don't get. So how does Buzzsprout give you, like, is it like per views? Did they give you ads, or how does that work?
You gotta like, I don't do it.
Mhm.
You gotta. I think you have to submit your podcast and see if there's like a bunch of sponsors that are willing to pay. So like, I don't know,
Okay.
to be honest, but like there is a monetization spot on Buzzsprout, and I think they just add like a verbal like, I don't know, add whoever wants to add, do it, right? But I think we're gonna
Okay.
what we're doing right now is trying to build up our viewers, our listeners, I mean,
Mhm.
and do local sponsors that are coming on to the podcast to sponsor that podcast.
Mhm, mhm.
Oh, right
Yeah.
on. Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is how are you guys planning to monetize off of your podcast? But I think that's one of the answers anyways.
The first, well, we were like, since we're already sponsoring this ourselves anyways, we're self-funding this, why don't we just put our real estate sponsorship on there? Because essentially it's coming from that.
Smart.
So every episode is sponsored by YYC Real Estate Group on our episodes, but we want to build it up to a certain point to get like some of the people that were on the podcast to sponsor, like a liquor store, or like, you know, an optical place. Like once we have enough listeners, then we can kind of run some space on them. If they want to do it for like, I don't know, a few months, half a year, we can kind of create a plan for them to do that. But right now we're all self-funded, self-sponsored.
Yeah,
Same
like the
with-
last 5 episodes is like sponsored by YYC. But I
Yeah.
think Dave agreed, like we weren't really looking to make money on the podcast. It's kind of more like we just wanted to do it just to share people's stories.
Mhm.
I don't think my mind was like, I want like 1 million listeners and like, you know, it's more of like, let's deal with local people that we know so we could understand their business and help share their story. So I don't think it was ever like, yeah, like let's get a million views and like sell, like, you know.
I think it kind of also just funnels like back to us anyways for business, because when people listen to the podcast, they listen to people that have been on the podcast, and then when we talk about real estate, like people that, like clients that have heard it will listen to it, they'll talk about like, oh, the episode's like whatever, and then it'll come back to real estate. So it's kind of this weird funnel, almost kind of like marketing that we with it, that almost funnels back to our business regardless.
Yeah, like we did an episode on Airbnbs, and then people that ask us about Airbnbs, we're just like, listen to this podcast. It like tells everything that we did with Airbnbs, and if they're interested, they'll be like, yeah, let's go look at some Airbnbs now, you know. So
And let's use YYC music.
so like, you know what I mean? It's just like, I think, yeah, it's like more of like just to bring an entrepreneurial group together that hasn't happened in Calgary, right? So what about for you guys? Like, are you guys wanting to grow it to get like as many listeners and then start doing sponsors? Like, what was your?
Well, I mean, I don't think we were looking at like it would be great to get money. Like that's like bonus, right? But I don't think, Lance, in our mind there was like I wasn't expecting us to grow to like to obviously to make money to because
What?
it's Lance is like I'm out.
What the? No. What the fuck are you talking about? No. I'm kidding. No, I mean, no. I'm playing. No, I think we took it on as a sorry guys. I think we took it on as a side project, and again, it's like it's just a voice, right? Like you say, for you guys, it was like a business community, and for us, it was like a community for like second generation Asians, right? And we touch a little bit more on first gen and even third gens, but I mean, yeah, it's just an outlet for people to kind of to listen to our stories, and hopefully people can resonate and relate to our stories that we're telling, and hopefully like the guests that we bring on can bring some valuable information or experience that people can kind of go, oh wow, this is how they did it, or this is what they're going through, and they can relate and possibly just be part of that community, right?
What made you decide to create this type of podcast that you wanted to share and like share the stories out? Like, was there something that happened that you're like, hey, I want to share these stories?
Initial impact.
Well, I don't know, I won't speak for Eric, but for myself, I was looking at this Facebook group. It's called Subtle Asian Traits. I don't know if you guys heard of it, but there was just so many stories on there that was like, oh wow, like yeah, that happened to me, or comparison, like oh yeah, I use a dishwasher as a drying rack. We never used a dishwasher. Stories like that or memes like that. You're just kind of like, oh wow. And I started thinking like, there's a lot of things that have gone through in my life that are exactly like what this group is talking about. And I figured, hey, why don't we do like a podcast to, kind of discover more about it? Because, the Facebook group was really just putting it out there and people reacting to it. But that conversation, it wasn't, it wasn't keeping going, right? So for me anyways, I kind of want to be like, okay, let's keep talking about it, right? Let's see if people can resonate with some of our stories and maybe tell us about their stories about how they use their dishwasher, or I don't know, microwaves or saran wraps, stuff like that. I don't know, I mean, I don't know if you guys have that same experience, but that's kind of what brought me to it. What about you, Eric? I don't know.
Well, I just want to make bank. No, just joking. But I just wanted to have great conversations with people. Like, of course, my initial idea was, like I said, it was in the movie sphere because I love watching movies and I wanted to just connect with people to talk about movies and do my own groups interviews with people maybe who are actors or film critics or whatever, just have conversation with them. But when I met up with Lance and he proposed this other topic, this was great for me too, because this is also a subject I'm very relatable to. There's a lot of topics we can talk about. I also can get the chance to meet a lot of new people and talk to them. And because it's a podcast and you can do it virtually, you can meet anybody around the world. And I can still talk about film, I think one of our episodes we haven't released yet, we are talking to someone in the film industry. So it's conversations like that. I just like to have those conversations, to hear stories, to tell my stories, and to have people out there listen and perhaps relate to them.
Yeah. And it's also like a little bit of a discovery, like for myself anyways, right? Like to discover, is all of these things that have happened in my life, is that what makes us who we are, right? And especially sometimes I find with like within my group of friends anyways, I won't speak to the broader general, but a lot of things that, because the way that my parents brought me up, there's a lot of things that are passed along to me. So through this journey of podcasting, we're also discovering, like, is that why we're the way we are? So like an example of that is we talk about Asians being non-confrontational. And so, a lot of times, even with a lot of my friends, we don't want to be confrontational. We don't like to, go up to someone and say, oh, you're doing the wrong thing. We kind of just rather be like, yeah, they're doing something wrong, so we'll just step away. But is this because like my parents were like that and they were non-confrontational? Is it because the fact that, they're coming from another country and they can't speak the language and they're in a foreign country and they're like, oh, we just don't want trouble. So, watching our parents be like that made us the way that we are, so it's like, it's a kind of like a discovery way too, for me anyways.
Generational like culture, and also like, I think just like, not like superstitions, but just like generational, just like habits, I guess, right? Like that you kind of grow up with. And it's like, do you continue growing with that because it's who it made you who you are today, but is it like something that you want to continue growing as well too? Because like you were saying before, we have this weird mixed mass of like Eastern and Western cultures, and we actually don't fit in like the Western culture, and we don't fit fully in the Eastern culture. We're just this like middle beast in the middle, and like we don't really beast. You're our own thing.
Absolutely.
It's like you're mixed. Because if you went back to like, if I went back to where my parents are from originally, they'd be like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Right?
Yeah.
And then when we come back, they're like, "Who is this like an Asian guy over here?" Like we don't really fit the mold in either part because we are essentially like half and half.
Yeah. And we dive into an episode talking about that. Like, I lived in China for 2 years, and myself being Chinese, I mean, you just don't feel like, you look Chinese, you look just like them, but when you go there, you don't feel like them, right? And you don't tell the same jokes. They don't get it, right? You talk about hockey, they don't understand hockey, So it's a weird feeling. But I've been here. I'm born and raised in Calgary. But when you stay in Calgary, like, it's also not the same either, right? Because, I don't know, right? I mean, when I went to school, I had like, fried rice, noodles. I mean, other kids were having like sandwiches, peanut butter sandwiches and stuff. And you feel like you don't fit in there either, right? Although you're born and raised in Calgary, there's a lot of instances where you're just like, I'm not, I don't know. I just don't feel like I'm Canadian enough, right? Sometimes, but yeah, I feel you.
Our parents weren't buying us any Dunkaroos and like,
they're like,
I did get Dunkaroos. I did get it. No.
Like you're eating some instant noodles.
Yeah, man.
But and that brings
I was trading my fried rice for sandwiches, man. I was hustling.
Oh shit, you're trading your fried rice.
Oh yeah, everyone's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Yo, man, you don't have some? Give me your sandwich."
You were a hustler from day one.
Like for me, I grew up in the South. I would say it's more, Caucasians, right? So I definitely knew I was the minority, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think growing up in Canada as an Asian, Calgary, there's a lot of stereotypes and a lot of things that I don't think people will understand unless you're Asian, right?
Have you guys ever tried in an office building just heating up some leftover steamed fish in the microwave? And everybody's like, what's that smell? And you're like, oh, that's mine. As you open up your steamed fish.
I got that. I will be honest with you, man. I brought my lunch. I brought some fish, and they were not happy, man. They're just like, "What?" I'm like, "Dude, this smells so good." They're like, "No, get that shit out of here." I'm like, "But it's so good." What can I say, right? I mean,
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, touching on some of that, David, you were talking about, superstition. I mean, and that brings me into my head about, Asians, about, the number 4 and 8, right? And for some of my friends, the Caucasians never understood that ever, right? They're just like, what do you mean you like 8s? Like, and we always see these on license plates, right? Like, it's like 888. you know that's gonna be an Asian guy in that car, right? You're like 888, yeah. And if you see like 444, no, no fucking way, it's gonna be some Asian having that number. Although I heard that Koreans think that 4 is the lucky number. Is that true? Or
My buddy was telling that 3 is.
or maybe it's 3. Sorry.
Yeah, when they list homes, like they list it on, it has to be like a 3rd, 13th, or 23rd, or 30th.
And that's because that's their lucky, like a lucky number for them, or
I guess so. That's what he was saying. But it's like I didn't even think of that. I was like, that's such an odd number, 3.
yeah.
But maybe it means something in Korean. So.
I guess we gotta be a little bit more diverse. So
the 4 and 8s are definitely I think a Chinese thing, right? Like I didn't even know about that until I got into real estate, and when I started working with Chinese clients, you know, they brought that up to me and I had no idea, right? So I think it's like if you don't grow up with it and you don't know, because I'm Thai, right?
okay, yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's you don't think about those things, right? But there's a lot of superstition definitely in real estate with a lot of like numbers or where the house faces or
Feng shui, baby.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So okay, you're Thai. Is there a bad number or a lucky number for
That's what I was
Thai?
gonna ask too.
You're asking the wrong Thai, man.
You're like, bro.
I'm the most Canadian Thai there probably is, man.
Yeah, I'm probably the most Canadian Chinese, and I know that 4 is not good. Although, you know, it's funny because my in-laws and everybody else, they're always like, don't get 4. And I always somehow like to fuck around with them and go, I don't give a shit. My license plate has 4 on there. So, you know, people are always like, what the fuck? Are you Chinese? I'm like, well, I am, but I don't really believe in the superstition, right? So it's a little bit different, right? Coming around.
It's old school versus
old school.
new school.
Yeah.
It's true. So Thai, no, not that you've heard of. Like not even from your mom and dad. They don't give a crap which number they get.
No.
Okay, let me ask you this.
I was like raised Canadian but Asian, but yeah, like.
Let me ask you this. What is there anything that's bad luck in terms of a Thai kind of tradition?
You're asking the wrong person.
Okay, what's bad luck in terms of Canadian then? Let me ask you that.
Oh,
Black cats.
Black cats, ladders, broken
well,
glasses?
I guess, like, because I don't believe any of that stuff, but 13, right?
13, okay, yeah.
Canadian. And
Does that stop people from buying houses though? Like if they got to a house and the house was number 13, they're like, it's fine. Just walk in.
But in Hong Kong, like they don't have the number 4 floor and number 13 floor either, right?
Oh, is 13 bad for in
I don't know.
Chinese
I thought it
too?
was.
Yeah.
I don't think 13 is bad, but I think Hong Kong might be a different story because they were a British colony, right? So they might have taken it out because of that.
It's because 1 + 3 is 4. So.
Oh, there you go.
I'm just joking.
Oh shit! You heard it right here, folks.
Yeah.
You heard it right here.
We're demystifying everything right now, man.
No, but it's actually so for people that don't know how serious the 8 is for Chinese. Like a lot of condos that are new builds, the 8th floor will be bought out right away.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like
Oh,
it's actually very like
We got into a dispute actually.
yeah,
With the
like
builder.
even with numbers with the address, like if there's a 4 in it, like it's actually a very big deal.
Yeah, because this builder one time, like they gave this client this number. They picked this house based on this number, and after when they purchased it, they're like, "Actually, we got to give you this number." And they're like, "What the fuck? Like, we paid extra for this one."
Yeah.
They were so pissed.
Yeah.
It took us a while to get it back, I think, or I don't even know how it's going now.
It's fine now. We figured it out.
I bought a condo in what's it called, 17th Ave, and the number was 408. And I was like, whatever, like the 4 just cancel out, and then like
Cancel out.
a fucking month before the possession, like, nah, you're actually 409 now. I'm like, fuck, I don't want that. Like, I fucking bought this because it was 408, not 409.
You know what's crazy? Like, I'm actually, believe it now. Like I'm actually a little superstitious. Like,
So you wouldn't get a 4 on anything now, is what you're saying?
I would prefer not to get a 4. I would definitely prefer to have an 8 because it's like in the back of your brain, it's still a like I don't know. Like, is it for you, Dave? Like, are you okay? Like Dave's number is there's a double 8 on it at the end.
That's that was the year I was born.
I know. So he's very lucky. He's born in 88 and his phone number has 88 in it,
My
right?
phone number is my birthday. And I didn't even know.
Shit.
Yeah.
Because it's funny because my phone number was originally my mom's phone, and then she wasn't using it. So then my dad was like, "Why don't you just take this number because you already started a line?" And the last 4 digits is 2788. And like I didn't even know for the longest time. I'm like, "Oh shit, it's my fucking birthday."
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so that's why it's really easy to remember my birthday. It's also my phone number.
But what I'm asking,
just in case you forget,
is like, would you change your number if it was 4444?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. And
No Chinese people would be calling you if you had that number.
Exactly.
Yeah, they don't even want to dial it. They're like, I'm not dialing this.
Damn, this guy's
That's what I mean. It's actually like it's actually made an impact, I think, for me at least, and it's starting to in the Western world, right? That's my opinion on that.
I think that you're onto something because, you know, even when I go to change my license plate, right, it will be like a white lady there at the registries, and she's like, "Oh no, this one's not good for you. Oh no, this was." I was like, "How do you know which one's good for me, right?" And she's like, "Oh no, you want an 8, right, sir?" And I was like, I mean, I guess we're talking about stereotypical, but I mean, they obviously know because enough Asians obviously walk into a registry asking purposely for an 8 in there and probably no 4s, right? So they already get it so often that they're like, okay, Asian guy comes in, it's like 8 for sure, right? So they try to get those. And
but for you, were you like, yeah, give me an 8?
At first I was like, yeah, I don't care, right? The only reason why I got a 4 once was honestly just to piss off, yeah, from my parents or my in-laws, like, why are you getting a 4? But I was getting it to prove a point. But I do think it's funny because after I did get that 4 on my license plate, shit did start happening. And so that does make you think like, okay, was it really because of the 4 or is this year just a shit year for me, So, hey, I don't know.
Well,
listeners out there,
like if you think, if you get a 4 and things start happening, you're gonna blame the 4, and then you're gonna probably want to.
You're thinking about it even more.
Yeah.
Well, I think the key is what and I don't know. Maybe it's in your mind subconsciously, right? That it goes back to that, and it's like, oh, some shit happened. Oh, it's because of the 4. But what if you didn't have a 4? And you had 8s, but shit was happening to you still? Would you?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, right?
It's like the laws of attraction.
Exactly.
And then it's like whatever you put like meaning like behind as well too. Because like I remember this one year, my parents were like, when they go to the temple, they're like, oh, it's your bad luck year. And I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, like it's the same year that you were born, like the year of the dragon. Every 12 years, it's like bad luck year, right? And my mom's like, yeah, you can't be around water. I was like, fuck, I'm like 70% water. I'm like, I need water. I need a fucking shower. Like I'm around water every day. Like it's a part of our life. Like, what do you mean I can't be around water? Like that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. So it's interesting that the superstition is so deep in like Asian culture.
Yeah. And I guess that's kind of why, like what we talk about as second gens, are these some of the things that make up who we are, in the decisions that we make in our lifetime. Like, for example, you said you went out and bought an apartment and there was a 4, but to maybe someone that wasn't Chinese, right? They'd be like, I don't give a shit if it's 4 or whatever, or 8 or whatever, right? So it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, it's actually my year this year. We did an episode on this because it's the year of the ox, and I am not a superstitious person. Like I don't even care. My license plate also has an 8, and a 4 actually on it. So I guess it cancels it. But when I look at houses, I don't care what the address is. If it's nice, it's nice. But as I was researching for these topics on superstitions and stuff, it starts to get to you, man.
Yeah.
It starts to get, and like that's why I bought a red phone case this year for my phone. And it's currently on it right there. It's gonna be on me at all times. Maybe it'll protect me.
What does a red phone case do?
Red is
Oh, it's just red, yeah.
Oh,
The
but
color
what does that
red
mean? Like, what does that mean? Just protects you?
protects me against bad luck. This year I'm not supposed to make any big financial decisions. I'm not supposed to do any big career changes. I literally just changed like my job level like 2 weeks ago, and I'm hoping to get a house this year. So it's like, like I don't know. Yeah, just whatever, man.
Mhm.
If it's something bad happens, then let's go, man. Let's go. Let's fight. Anyway, I know that this was kind of like a huge tangent from like what we were talking about.
I'm thinking about it, like, how do we wrap this up now?
I mean, I was also going to say, I mean, we were talking about monetization. We're not into it. However, for our listeners, Off the Walk does have a donation link. I just want to point that out. If you go to the Instagram, the link tree, there is a donation button there. If you want to contribute $1, keep the lights on, keep our hosting going.
Much appreciated.
Is that like a patron?
It's no. So this is just like, so Linktree now offers donation, like an actual donation link. But we also use another website called, I don't know how you pronounce it, Coffee or Ko-fi, Kofi, and that also has donation. We had, like, I was exploring Patreon, but Patreon is like a membership tier, right? So it's like monthly, and then you kind of like say you offer something. I'm not sure if we're able to offer every month extra bonus stuff or something like that for someone to incentivize them to pay. Like, we have started doing bonus content, but I don't think it's like enough right now for someone to actually be willing to pay every month.
Yeah. So this thing just allows you one-time payment. If they like the episode, they could just donate.
Yeah, if they just or if they just want to support us, we're putting it low, but fuck, man, we get killed on those service charges from like PayPal and whatever, especially because it's a small amount, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think like this is just a for fun kind of podcast for us, right? And obviously, for some of the listeners or viewers here, podcasts obviously still cost us money, right? We have to pay for some of the hosting fees and our website, and those kind of things. And so it still takes a little bit of our time and effort to do all of this. So yeah, it doesn't seem like a whole lot, but even $1, it can still go some ways, right? But we do it like, and some people just want like a shout out. So I think we're offering some shout outs right on top of that. So, if you just want us to shout out, or if there's a story that you want us to share with some of our listeners, we're open for that as well.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you pay us like $50, we'll do whatever you want. Because it's like,
you heard it here first, but Eric actually has an OnlyFans page.
Yeah.
So if you want to pay $50 and see whatever, contact Eric.
Let's go.
I think we should look into that, Dave.
What, the OnlyFans?
Well, that too. The like donate a coffee, because like, I think it'd feel nice if someone appreciates your effort and they just want to donate $1 even. I think I'd feel really humbled by that. Like, thank you. It's a lot of work that gets into the podcast, right? So.
For sure. Yeah. And that's another good way to gauge whether your content is reaching out to people too, right? It's just a little dollar here and there. It's just like to say, hey, you guys are doing a good job. And it's kind of like a tip, right? Like just giving you a tip and saying, hey, you're doing a good job, and keep up with the content. And again, I think most of us are open to suggestions to what kind of material that we can cover on our podcast. So yeah.
Yeah, we sent out some like a Google survey actually to a bunch of people and just sent it out to a lot of people and just asked them what type of topics, like there's like questions and stuff. And then it's also helps us kind of like figure out which demographic, what type of topics they want. So we just, that's free, right? You just create it, just send it out. So that's something that you could do to kind of like see what your listeners want, right?
Totally.
That's a good idea, actually. It's like a test room for like topics and stuff like that too that people want to hear.
Or even guests, right? For us, like which guests would you guys like to see on?
Right? Yeah, because like I don't know how you guys find guests. For us, it's a lot of searching. How do you guys find guests?
Just randomly begging people, please come on to our show.
Well, why don't we talk about how we found each other? I think that's a story.
Yeah. Like I think what happened was I started following. Was it Jason? I think I started following Jason you first on Instagram. Then I started following Behind the Business, and then I found out that my sister knows David from.
Then David told me that what's her name?
Katie.
He's like, oh, Katie knows the person Eric off the walk. And that was it, I think, for a while. I was like, okay, cool.
Well, Katie told me that you guys are doing a podcast and it was called Off the Walk, and that she was asking about our podcast studio. And then she was like, oh, like my brother does a podcast, like you guys should connect. And I was like, oh, what's the podcast called? So she sent me the podcast, started listening to a couple of them. And then I was like telling Jason, like, yo, we should go on this podcast. We should kind of join together and talk to these guys, because they're talking about Asian, like social problems with the Asian community. And I thought it was pretty cool, like the racism and whatnot. And then I was like, we should figure a way to do a collaboration. And then Jason just contacted Eric, like, yo.
Yeah. Straight up, like just DM. And I was like, then I go talk to them. I was like, yo, did what happened? Did you talk to them or something?
Yeah, Dave literally said that. Then I contacted you, and I just told Dave, I'm like, yo, we have a call with Eric. And
what the hell?
I think I was just as surprised because I was like,
I think that's all we were trying to leave here is there is a huge power of the podcast of like connection with people in a way that, you know, that would have probably never happened. We would have never met.
No,
it was for this podcast, right?
We would have never met. Like all I would have known of you guys would be like, I wouldn't have known you. I would have only known David just from that picture that my sister showed me of you guys in Japan with Pharrell Williams. So, yeah, because I saw that, I was like, oh, you guys were Pharrell? Damn. But that's it. That would have been the extent of everything.
Exactly.
And now we're in a podcast, and how we're connecting with you guys. We're like, and that's how we're connecting with a lot of finding guests as well too. Like we go on Instagram, we follow them. I listen to the stuff. I'm like, this sounds cool. DM, want to do a collab, or I mean, a lot of the people that we've been interviewing, some have been friends as well too, or friends of friends. Or I follow a ton of podcast groups on Facebook, and then if I see anybody who's cool, I just message them immediately. So that's a good idea. Yeah, like all my Facebook groups right now are all on just the podcast groups. And then I follow all these other ones from Medium, which is like a blog writing site. I wrote a couple articles on there to make money for the podcast. Made no money, like maybe like 70 cents maybe, but it's a start. so yeah, but like, yeah, that's how we're finding a guest. Like, how are you guys finding guests?
Direct message. They're reaching out to us.
Yeah.
I think our networks, like we just have such a big network that it's just,
a lot of them are like friends, just like clients, like people that we know that kind of run businesses, and like also just referrals from some of our other friends. But we literally just ask them like, hey, would you want to come on our podcast while we talk about what it is? Like sometimes even like random business owners, like you go to a restaurant or something like that, and you like have a really good experience there. Like, hey, we should have this guy on the podcast. So it's like we slowly just kind of build it up. Like we'll go back to the restaurant, like build rapport, and I'll be like, oh yeah, you should come on our podcast. And like, oh yeah, sure, we'll be down for that.
That's legit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
legit. Yeah, like because right now we are asking more for sure. Like we've had a couple people approach us first, but for most majority of the time it's us approaching them right now. I mean, I guess you've made it if people start to if more people approach you versus the other way around. I guess that's when you've
You
made
have
it.
no idea how many emails there I've not responded to that like they're supposed to come on the podcast. I'm like, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's like
They're weird though. They're
yeah.
like kind of like spamming. Like they have like someone working for them
They have a lot of people have yeah.
to get them onto other people's podcasts.
Wait, what is it?
So-
What do you mean? So
So they have like maybe an admin be like, hey, this person you should get this person on your podcast as a guest, like blah blah. They wrote these many books. They specialize in like SEO, all this stuff. So like they're trying to get their name on as many podcasts and stuff like that as they can because it builds up their business and stuff like that too. Marketing, I think.
Yeah, like some guy we're supposed to actually get him on. He wrote a book and he lives in the UK and he reached out to me and
So how did these guys just know about you? Like, did you post it somewhere or something?
We have no
I
idea.
have no idea. That's why like when I get him on the podcast, I want to talk to him. I don't know how you guys want to end this, but like something to leave. Like, what are your real thoughts with the podcast? Or like, you guys, like, you know what I mean?
I think I know what you mean. I don't know. Maybe here, I'll just start it out. I'll just start it out.
Yeah.
So I guess the takeaway for me out of if you're gonna start a podcast, so
There
any
you go, there you
listener
go.
or viewers
Yeah.
looking to start a podcast, I would say some of the takeaways for me is definitely do your research. Maybe do something like what me and Eric did, do a test run if you're gonna have a co-host to see how you jive with your co-host. If things are good, take a look at what equipment that you might need to purchase, and again, right, taking a look at whether you want to do it virtually or like physically in a live studio, like how you guys are doing it. And there's obviously perks to both sides, right, of that, but take a look at that. And yeah, just I guess just have fun, and also look at, I guess, what topics you're going to be talking about. Make sure you have enough content, right? Because you don't want to be really too niche that you can't grow any further, because you'll run out of topics real quick, and then you'll be stuck going, what should I do? So make sure if you're going to talk about something that is maybe general, or maybe can dive into different directions. That'd be my takeaway.
Yeah, it's something that you're really like passionate about. I feel like, it's like you won't be able to push forward and continue to do it consistently because it's not easy. And like if you're not passionate about it, you're just gonna phase out of it real quick as well.
Mm-hmm. And I would also say too, just to add on to all that, like make sure you just fucking do it, man. That's the first step, man. Start out and do that test episode and then send it to some people for feedback and all that. Don't just be like, oh, I will do it later or whatever. Just fucking do it, man. Because that's me. Just fucking okay, let's go. And then let's bang out an episode, get what the people. Lance didn't even know I pushed that episode out to YouTube.
I did.
Yeah. I was like, all right, so get
Nike
the
said.
feedback. Yeah, man.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that's my.
I think mine would be it's not going to be perfect, and be okay with that. And you're going to learn more on each episode. The more episodes you do, the more comfortable you're going to be in your own skin, and more comfortable with the whole podcast. And I think it's everything that you guys said. Like if you're not passionate about it, you're going to do 2 episodes and be like, why am I even doing this? Right. So and just do it, right? I guess.
Yeah, just
stop
fucking
thinking
do
about it, right? Just do it and then get it out there. And then like I don't know what like for me, the first episode was the scariest, but once it's out there, like it's okay. Like you'll actually get a lot of, if it's good, like I think a lot of good feedback, right? Because you're putting yourself out there, and people see that. So
yeah, the first episode is the scariest. Like you're almost you're nervous, and yet you're like, I'm just speaking on a mic.
Yeah.
Not to anybody really. It's just like
Yeah, talking to yourself.
yeah, and you're like nervous. I don't know why that feeling is.
I think the biggest thing is you're your own biggest critic, right? So if you're gonna listen to your own stuff, you're always gonna be not liking what you said here or there, or you're gonna, oh, I should have done this a little bit better. But sometimes, you know, just gotta let that go, right? Like you say, just go out there, do it, and the next time you get better, right? Okay, I shouldn't have said that. Okay, don't say it next time, or I should elaborate on this. Okay, let's do that. So definitely, it's a learning as you go type of thing, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Do it.
So I guess for the people who want to contact, you know, and you want to be an Off the Walk or Behind a Business, our email is offthewalk.info@gmail.com. Instagram, Off the Walk Podcast. Follow us there.
Honestly, just message us, DM us on Behind the Business Podcast, or just find one of us on Facebook, Instagram, wherever. Just shoot us a message.
Real estate, YYC Real Estate Group.
Yeah, YYC. And yeah, that's where you can find us.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool, guys.
Well, thanks for having us on.
Thanks for having us on, and thanks for coming on to ours, right? We both were on.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for having us on, and thanks for you guys coming on ours. And yeah, I maybe we could do this again.